What's going on, nerds? My name is Jesse, and we are back here with my brother Jack, aka Lionhearts, aka another co-creator on the channel, Nerds Mirais. Jack, how you doing?
Doing great, feeling great, and I'm ready.
Feeling great. And this is going to be our first spoiler cast ever. If you guys want to see more of these in the future, please let us know in the comments down below. We plan to do more of these if it's at all possible. Today we're talking about The Last Jedi, directed by Rian Johnson, and we saw it the opening day. It was pretty great. What do you think, Jack?
I think first off, I'm going to turn down your volume because you're screaming in my ear.
Wow. Okay.
I thought, it's going in the video. I thought it was great. I really enjoyed it. I mean, obviously, full disclosure, big Star Wars fan. I'm a Star Wars nerd. I'll admit it. But even objectively speaking, it's been a couple of days. We've had a chance to digest on the movie a little bit. I really enjoyed it. It's long. It's definitely a longer Star Wars movie, but it kept my attention the entire time. And as opposed to the first movie, I felt like The Force Awakens kind of lost me at times, where it kind of wasn't holding my attention. And it's a shorter movie, but this longer movie held me the whole way through, definitely.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it as well. It's got 93% on Rotten Tomatoes and a 7.8 on IMDb, which I think is a little low. I'll check what Force Awakens is later and put it in the comments. But the big thing here that I'm noticing on Rotten Tomatoes is that it's a 55% audience score, which has to be the lowest it's ever been for Star Wars, not including the prequels. What do you think about that?
I don't know if we watched the same movie, to be honest.
A lot of vitriol between this movie.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of controversy with this, and I'm not really sure where it's coming from. I can understand, and I guess, are we gonna try and do like this first little bit here, non-spoilery, then jump in, just to kind of get
Yeah,
people
we're gonna do a
warm
couple
up?
of pre-thoughts, but once we start getting into it, I'll put up a
Yeah.
little spoiler warning. But we're definitely gonna be talking spoilers here. If you haven't seen the movie,
Yep.
please get out. But
Definitely
yeah, it's
stop
gonna
what
be a
you're doing.
little bit of non-spoiler here.
Yep. So, I mean, I don't know, because I felt like the vibe when we were in the theater was really good. It didn't feel like people were bummed out about the movie. It felt like everyone was having a good time. Um, I can understand having like gripes with maybe characters you didn't like or not liking, maybe like the cinematography or the dialogue or whatever. But overall, looking at it objectively as a story, yeah, there's a lot to break down in this movie. There's a lot going on in this movie. But I find not a lot of it objectively bad. In fact, there's very few things I find objectively bad. And that's really set aside a lot of bias, because obviously anything Star Wars, I'm going to find some enjoyment in because I love Star Wars. So it's very weird to me that there's this much like pushback against this movie.
Yeah, same. I agree. And just for comparison here, I just pulled up the Rotten Tomatoes score for Force Awakens. It was 93% on the critic score, so exactly the same as Last Jedi, but 88% audience score. So that's a big difference. I mean, we're talking about 30% here. That's a big deal. I don't think there's ever been such a like split community on Star Wars, because most people who are in the bag for this shit, like we are gonna love it even if it's mediocre. But I didn't think it was mediocre. I thought it was quite good. If I had to give it a rating out of 10, I would say it's an 8.5. I really liked it. No, I'm going to bump it to a 9. It's a 9 out of 10 for me. What do you think, Jack?
Yeah, I think a 9 out of 10 is perfectly fine. I mean, for all of the do, and you consider the circumstances, especially in the later stages of production, unfortunately, the tragedy that, the loss of Carrie Fisher is, for this movie to still be as put together as it is. And I don't know much about Rian Johnson, if that's how you say his name.
Ryan Johnson.
Ryan Johnson,
Spelled extremely weirder, but extremely
definitely
weird,
spelled weird. But he directed his ass off in this movie, like from a cinematography standpoint. And this is something I'm so growing to appreciate. The camera work in this movie is awesome. I really love it. I think there's a lot of good callbacks with a lot of the camera work. And the movie just looks damn good. I think it looks better than Force Awakens. I think Force Awakens has like that definite J.J. Abrams touch to it, but almost like a little bit too much so. And I really like the feel and the way they did a lot of the shots for The Last Jedi. So from a just purely visual standpoint, the movie looks perfect in my eyes,
And then what'd you give it out of 10?
I'd say same, 9 out of 10. I don't think that
I agree.
a movie has to be so above and beyond to get perfect. I don't even think there's a single Star Wars movie that's a 10 out of 10. So I think 9 out of 10 really says the caliber of movie that this is.
All right, well, I'm going to drop this on you, and you weren't prepared for this. Star Wars movies ranked. For me, it's going to go Empire, and here's a shocker, Last Jedi, number 2, then A New Hope, then Force Awakens, Return of the Jedi, Revenge of the Sith, and then Phantom Menace and Clone Wars? No, Attack of the Clones. is the last one.
Yeah. I mean, I'll hit you with another 180. For me, it's Empire, Last Jedi, Rogue One, then A New Hope,
Oh,
followed by Force Awakens.
I was counting just the numerical Star Wars.
Oh, okay, fair enough. But I mean,
Yeah, I
Rogue
hear
One
you.
could
Rogue One's in there.
different show. We'll probably do an episode on it, but I think Rogue One doesn't get enough credit. Anyways, any more non-spoiler thoughts that I have for it? I think that once again, obviously, you have all of your basic Star Wars fanfare. There's lots of the music. I think they even somehow stepped up another game. The music, as always, is really well done. You know, there will never be another score for a movie as iconic as Star Wars, and I think that's pretty well cemented at this point. Again, the cinematography looks great. I think overall, the movie flows really well, and I don't really have much more to complain about. I would say I wish it wasn't so long, because it is definitely, it feels they had to cram so much, and we'll get into some of the spoilers. There was so much they had to do, because Force Awakens kind of like left a lot of questions, left a lot of things there. There was so much to kind of break down, and there were so many places they could go, that this movie inevitably was going to get bogged down by having to divulge and move the details forward enough for number 9 to be the final chapter. So because of that, the long, but there wasn't anything that I didn't like in it.
Yeah, we're gonna get into the spoiler stuff here, and we're gonna try to stay on topic here and not jump so crazily out of nowhere to a bunch of different spots of the movie. So let's go chronologically here. We start with Luke Skywalker, Rey handing him the lightsaber. No, do we start there, or we start with Poe?
No. It starts with Poe. We start with Poe. Very first shot.
We see Poe doing his fucking. Oh my god, Poe gets some awesome shit in this movie, especially at the beginning. Obviously, he gets shit on for the majority of the rest of the movie, but the first kind of scene with him and General Hux was fucking incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I think Poe Dameron is really his character is kind of coming into his own as the new, back talking rogue, like that new Han Solo, if you want to phrase it that way.
I wouldn't even compare him to Han Solo. I know that's like they're trying to bait you into that, and I know everybody wants to compare him to Han Solo, but I think he's not like Han Solo. Han Solo wants nothing to do with the rebellion, whereas Poe Dameron, he's all about it. He wants to be a part of this, and he wants to be the leader of this thing. He just might be a little too gung-ho.
Yes, and definitely I think that I love that the movie opens immediately with just this great. We pick up right up on the action. There's no build up. There's no pausing. The first scene of the movie is a big fight with Star Destroyers, which I thought was a great pace opener, and you get really good subtle hints at where the movie is going when. Obviously, after Poe Dameron has the great back and forth with General Hux, they bring in the bombers in this surprise attack to try and save the rebellion, because General Hux is about to destroy the rebel base from the last movie. And that scene where the girl manages to get the bombs to drop and destroy the Dreadnought.
Rose's sister, yeah.
Rose, it's revealed later on that's Rose's sister. It's a really great show. This movie has a lot of show don't tell done very, very well, in my opinion. And I didn't mean to rhyme all that, but I did anyway. There's a lot of things in this movie where they don't explicitly say it, but they leave enough information there that you can put it together why they did it. And I really love that in film, and it really makes the movie more interesting when you see that stuff starting to come into fruition.
Yeah, I agree. And I also want to talk just a little bit about the opening joke between Poe Dameron and General Hux, also known as Domhnall Gleeson. I did find it very funny. But the type of comedy that this is almost kind of feels like it doesn't fit in the Star Wars universe. Not that sarcasm and funny jokes don't fit in Star Wars. I just felt like this type of joke is all over this movie, with like when Luke throws the lightsaber over his shoulder, these kind of just like out of nowhere things that are kind of like campy almost. I think that kind of threw me out of the movie a little bit, just a couple of times. Even though I did get a couple of good laughs, I just kind of felt like there maybe was just a little bit too much of that type of comedy in the film. What do you think?
Right. I will say that they made one major distinction, that there's only a couple places where the comedy is coming from like a human character. A lot of the comic relief is shifted over to like the animals, the various animals, or like Chewbacca or the droids, which I think is kind of a lot of the comic relief has been shifted away from the dialogue. Except for obviously the few key moments with Poe Dameron, which his character is meant to be a wisecracker, which is kind of understandable. But you're right, it kind of overstays his welcome a little bit.
Yeah, just a little too quippy sometimes.
Yeah, but I like the comic relief because if you take that away, this is a pretty heavy movie. There's a lot of serious stuff going on throughout the
Yeah,
entirety of it.
yeah.
But I will agree that, especially in the beginning, there was a little bit of it like too much, maybe.
Like I'm not saying I don't want comedy in the film. I just felt like there
Right.
was a theme of a certain type of comedy that is supposed to be campy. Like a good example, we're gonna go back to chronological in a second, but Luke's final scene at the end when he dusts off his shoulder, that shit's like just so campy to me. It doesn't fit in my mind into Star Wars. Like that's like a meta reference, and Star Wars is supposed to be a galaxy far, far away from a time way before, right? So having meta references that are so heavily meta just kind of throws me off sometimes. Not that I have a huge problem with it. I just like when you compare comedy from Force Awakens. A lot of comedy from Force Awakens is like situational comedy where you get somebody reacting to somebody. Like Finn is hilarious because he does great reactions, and that kind of comedy is welcome to me. Whereas some of the other super meta comedy is not. Like I just have a small problem with it. Not a huge problem. I love the movie overall. I just kind of felt like that kind of stuff pulled me out a couple of times.
Right. I will say, especially with the Poe Dameron and General Husk exchange in the beginning of the movie, I think what makes me like it a little bit more is that after that battle ends, they go back and reiterate why he was doing that. He was
Yeah,
distracting long enough for the rebels to get in position. I thought that was, again, it kind of goes back to that show don't tell. If they hadn't gone back and clarified that, I would agree that I think that scene's a little weird. But the fact that he's trying to buy time and get General Husk to redirect his blasters at Poe to draw away from the rebel base, I think that it kind of brings it into, it clarifies that, and I think makes it more justified. And the exchange stuff is still funny, so I think that's
yeah.
a
I'm not.
really
I'm
good
not
way of
arguing that
handling it.
it's not funny or that it's not integral to the plot. I'm just saying the way the scene was written doesn't fit in the Star Wars universe for me personally, and that's obviously just personal
Right.
opinion. All right, moving forward here because we got to get through this whole movie here. Once
Yep.
we get on to Luke's island and we get the first scene with Luke throwing the lightsaber, and we kind of have a master apprentice thing that we want to happen so bad as the audience, but basically when Luke throws that lightsaber, that's Ryan Johnson telling you, look, man, whatever you thought was going to happen in this movie is not going to happen in this movie. So a
Yep.
lot of the expectations and fan theories and things like that, we're going to get smashed without a doubt from that scene forward. So I don't have a huge problem with it. I thought it was really cool seeing Luke kind of living on the island because I think in a lesser movie, they just say Luke finds his food somewhere and gets his drinks from somewhere else, and who cares? Let's not show it. But I thought it was really cool seeing him fish and milk the weird animal thing and all that. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, and I think it kind of gives you a sense of just how disconnected and isolated Luke is. Like they really nailed that home, just how much he wanted to be alone and how much he just wanted to leave this all behind.
Yeah,
Right? I mean, we understood that obviously going in, especially at the end of the Force Awakens, but he's really committed that he doesn't want to teach a new generation of Jedi. He thinks the Jedi Order should die out. Obviously, it's a big plot point in this entire movie is whether or not the Jedi Order should continue with Rey and the new generation. And there's so much obvious regret for what happened with Kylo Ren and him, and that plays so well in his character. I think Mark Hamill, like he goes between being, the crotchety old man to this old withered Jedi with so much regret and this detachment from the Force. I really think Mark Hamill was so on point throughout this entire movie. Like he makes it. He definitely makes this movie, in my opinion. I really loved it.
yeah. Mark Hamill did himself some crazy justice in this film. I think they wrote the way they wrote Luke Skywalker was awesome. He has some iconic as fuck moments, like some serious iconic Star Wars moments happen in this film with Luke. I think a couple of things else I wanted to talk about while they were on the island. When Rey has her first scene where he's like, sit here, kneel, or cross your legs, and then they go through the whole Force situation here, feel the Force, and then she goes to the dark place. Okay, and then what I thought was going to happen there is Luke was gonna pull her out with the Force, like here, like maybe fight her vision with his vision, and then later on down the road here we find out that Luke shut himself off to the Force, and I thought that was a great way to get around saying why Luke did not know that Han died. Because if he's open to the Force, he would have the same reaction that Leia did at the end of Force Awakens. But considering he's closed off to the Force, he's not feeling what's happening in the universe.
Right. I thought that was great too because again, it hammers home the isolation and just how much he wanted to be by himself that he even shut out the Force.
Yeah,
Which I mean, to this point, I don't know if we had any knowledge that people could do that. Just turn off this connection to the Force,
yeah,
but Luke was able to, and that was really cool. And then what island sequence, which goes throughout most of the movie. I love that Rey is really coming into her own as a Force user. There's obviously that great scene where she's training with her spear, and then she picks up or staff rather. Then she picks up the lightsaber, and she has like so much natural talent that you see it like connect in Luke's eyes, like that fear of there being another great Jedi Master coming up. And
yeah.
it really, again, I'm gonna keep on referencing it. The whole show don't tell. It's not like Luke says, "Oh my God, she's going to be great." You just see the apprehension and like that fear in Luke's eyes, and then he stomps away.
I have a
It's
better
all
show
really
don't tell
well done.
moment there that happens in that exact same scene when she's swinging the lightsaber around, and then he's watching her, and he's like, "Okay, this is pretty good. Like she's pretty good." And then all of a sudden, she slices through the Jedi statue, like sit right through the half. That's when he has the fear in his eyes because he's like, she has no control. She could really go out here and hurt some people.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, I thought that was a cool scene. I thought that was a great way to kind of show you without having to tell you. And if you're really paying attention, you're kind of a savvy viewer, you're going to pick up on that kind of stuff.
Yep. I will say, okay, chronological computer just like my monitor shut down. Okay,
Moving
going
back
past the
to the,
island,
yeah,
yeah, going past the island scene. Obviously, we have, and then Finn's first thought is to get away and go find Ray. He wants to find Ray,
yeah, all
and
he
then we
cares
get
about is Ray, to
introduced.
be fair.
Yeah, to be fair. And then we get our introduction of the first new auxiliary character in this movie. We get to meet Rose, who is the sister of the girl from the first scene, as we mentioned. And I know there's kind of a lot of people who don't like Rose's character because initially she is like this super Star Wars fangirl all over Finn. She really likes him, she's kind of annoying in those first couple scenes. But as soon as it gets to the point that it looks like they're not going to be able to escape General Husk's ship and the rebellion's about to be destroyed, and there's no more fuel to escape because the General Husk's ship has technology that could track ships through light space or hyperspace, rather, which is a big plot point in the movie.
Yeah,
They go off on this adventure to find a code breaker to be able to break into General Husk's ship. And this whole section of the movie seems to be the most contentious section because they go to what was the city called? I forget.
Canto Bite.
They go to Cantobite, this like gambling city on the ocean, to
Yeah,
find this code breaker to break onto the ship. And I'm gonna go out on a limb here against what a lot of people are saying. I think this section of the movie, regardless of the fact that it needs to be said, it's integral to the movie. But I think this section is really well done, and it really brings this new character into focus, and she kills it. I think she kills this whole act of the movie.
yeah. I would actually argue that the setup to Canto Bite is the problem, not Canto Bite itself. I actually think all the scenes that are in Canto Bite are welcome and forward the plot greatly, but there is a slight rush to get to Canto Bite. Like, here's Maz Kanata, she's in some kind of fight for some reason. She goes, "Hey, go to this place, find this guy." If that was a little bit more developed, like, "Hey, we need to find this guy. Here's where he's at. Here's what we do. This is what he can do. This is his name, this, and that." Instead of we go to Canto Bite, we have nothing. We're looking for a little flower. We find him in jail. Like, okay, we'll kind of just flounder our way through that. I thought that could have been a little bit better well done. But the actual scenes in Canto Bite, showing the casino, which is obviously a callback to the Mos Eisley scene, which is fine with me, the cantina scene. I thought
Yeah,
that was all cool, and I thought there was some great comedy moments with the little guy who's like shoving coins in BB-8 and stuff. I thought all that kind of stuff worked great. I don't have a problem with the animal abuse kind of like social justice thing that's been put into the movie. I don't really have a problem with that. I also actually really enjoy Benicio del Toro's character as well.
yeah. So I mean, just to real quick summarize the arc, we were going to Cantobite to find the codebreaker, and we find him, but they get arrested immediately, and they find another guy in jail, Benicio del Toro's character, and he's like this very shady. He talks really weird, and they're like, "Oh, this is just some bum in jail," but he quickly shows himself to be this very capable jailbreaker, criminal basically.
Yeah,
And I do the whole like social justice thing that people are bringing up about this whole Canto Bite section. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that interpretation because it's true. There's a lot of throughout the Star Wars canon. There's been so much evidence of like poverty and like these class-based issues that are a thing in this universe because half the universe is divided under one style of government, half the universe is divided under another style of government. And here you have this resort gambling city where people come, the richest of the rich, who made their money off selling weapons to feed the war machine. I think it's very, very well done, just like explanation of what people who live on the ground level, the type of people who would end up in the rebellion, like Rose and
Like
a lot of
Finn.
the rebellion fighters, like Finn.
Yeah, like how Finn ends up in the First Order. It's the same thing except the opposite result.
So I don't think that it's, and a lot of people say this is like some kind of political commentary on the world. I think Star Wars is in its own, is trying to do political commentary on its own universe.
Yeah,
I think people are just projecting at that point. I really don't like that argument because I think that kind of clarifies what the universe is dealing with the Republic being gone.
Yeah, I agree, and I hear a lot of arguments about this scene's only in the movie, so Ryan Johnson can have Broom Boy or Broom Kid, who also has a Force at the end of the movie, has a scene at the end of the movie where when Luke is dying, or not dying, giving himself up to the Force, the kid grabs the broom with the Force, and it's kind of like one leaves and one's here, you know?
Yeah.
And that has perfect symmetry to me, and I don't think that's the reason Canto Bight is in the movie. I think it furthers the plot, and I would love to see what Ryan Johnson does with Broom Kid, because there is some news floating around that Ryan Johnson might get his own spin-off trilogy, which would be dope, because I thought this movie was very good and very well shot and very well directed as well. Moving on, we have these great Force scenes between Rey and Ben Solo, a.k.a. Kylo Ren. I thought those were incredibly good.
Yeah, I think these might be some of my favorite scenes of the entire movie.
Agreed.
Because we have the opposite of two conflicts. We have Rey, who has her conflict, who was definitely on the light side, but has her conflicts with dark thoughts. And then you have Kylo, who was definitely dark, but has his conflicts with the light thoughts. And they're both so powerful with the Force that they're able to connect with each other. And they have these exchanges where one is trying to bring the other over fully to their side. I think these are some of the best scenes in the whole movie. Just the exchanges between Adam Driver and Daisy Ridley, I think, are fantastic. I mean, they're just like really well done. And I think that there may have been some apprehension with Adam Driver as Kylo Ren in the first movie. I don't
You're
know
out of your
how
mind
there could be any.
if you don't like Adam Driver. You're out of your fucking mind. He does crazy justice to this character. If it's any other actor other than Adam Driver, I'm definitely not as in as I am right now, because he has made that character to be so damaged and so conflicted. It's incredible. When we get the first scene with Rey, and she sees Kylo, and Kylo sees her, and you don't really know what's going on at first, but it's just kind of like there's cutting back and forth, and you're seeing them two, and they're kind of putting it all together. And then Kylo's like talking to her, and then he's like, I can't see you. Can you see me? I can't see anything around you. I thought that was just like so well done. And those scenes that go on, and then he has the one scene where it's raining, and he's talking to her, and he has rain on his hand. We have never seen Force be able to phase from one place to another place physically. It's incredible. The possibilities are almost endless with that.
Yeah, and like he does that damage that you can see in every scene. Like earlier in the, just before this starts, when he goes through and he almost kills Leia, you see that he's so damaged that he knows he should do it. He should kill the rebellion leader because that's what Snoke would want him to do.
Yeah.
But still, at the very end, he can't. Like there's so much nuance to what's going on with Kylo Ren that it's going to continue into this third movie, and there's still doubt as to what he's going to end up. He's definitely leading the First Order right now, but he's still conflicted about where he stands about Rey. And throughout this whole movie, it just gets worse and worse and worse with how damaged he's feeling. And Rey all the time is trying just to poke, calling him Ben, playing out his past, and she feels her own conflict when Kylo starts playing out the faults in Luke.
Yeah.
Which is just great. There's so much depth going on here because it's not just black and white. Kylo Ren killed all the Jedi students and portrayed Luke. Yeah. But, there's a big reveal towards the end, towards the latter half of this movie, that Luke was going to kill Kylo because he was so disturbed by the power and darkness inside him.
Wait. Let's save that for a second. I want to talk about, because we're skipping through a lot of that middle half of the movie here. Okay. I do want to talk about that Leia scene when she's floating in space and she uses the Force to come back, and it's kind of like Leia's best moment in all of Star Wars. And I've also seen a lot of contention with this online about people saying that it's like cheesy or not possible because Leia is not a Jedi. But I love that scene. She's floating in space, and you're like, holy shit, they're going to kill Leia in the first 30 minutes of the movie. And you're like, well, I guess it's not the end of the world because it pushes Kylo forward. And Carrie Fisher has passed away, so maybe this is a good way for her to go out. But then all of a sudden the music changed, and I think you hear either the Jedi theme or Leia's theme, and then you see her finger twitch, and you hear that Force like sound when you're using the Force, and all of a sudden she comes to life. And there's like a Force bubble around her, and apparently this used to be canon back in the day, and that was how Anakin survived the lava. I just heard this theory, by the way. But anyways, that scene, I thought that was incredible. I had crazy goosebumps, and I was like, oh my god, Leia is a true badass. And I thought that was a great moment for Carrie Fisher, and I'm glad it was in the film.
Yeah, because it's always been said that Leia is very strong in the Force. It's just not really manifested. But, you know, this is true also in other areas of not only Star Wars, but life itself. When you're pushed to your very limit, your body can reach new heights. Yeah. And it's very easily possible to say that when Leia was forced out into space and she was about to die, her Force sensitivity clicked and she was able to save herself. Yes. And and plus, it's just a good looking scene. You can't, Leia looks a little weird, but she's floating through space, guys. She's not going to just start walking.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. Her body she's covered in ice and Force. She's not going to be able to move very well. She's using the Force to push her body back. Right.
Anyways, I thought that scene was incredible. I can't believe people are hating on that scene. I think it was a great moment for Carrie Fisher and the character.
And the scene's even more important because it sets up a really great theme that this movie is going to have twists. This movie is going to make you think one thing right up until the very last moment and then take a left turn. There are a ton of big twists in this movie that just keep you like surprised, and they're good. I love all of the twists in this movie.
Let's talk about one of the best ones. The best twist in the movie for me personally is when we see the Luke and Kylo scene 3 times 3 different ways. I thought that was one of the best things they could have done. It was like a little vignette, and it was incredible. The first time we see it, Luke tells Rey a half-assed story of what happened between him and Kylo, and you see Luke over his bed, and then Kylo pulls the rocks over him. The second time we see it is when Rey and Kylo are having their Force thing that they're doing, and they're talking about it, and he's like, do you know why I left? And she goes, yes, I know. And then he tells her the story. He says, Luke was going to kill me, and you see Luke, and he's got this look in his eyes, and Mark Hamill, but you nailed that shit. I almost believed that for a second. I was like, holy shit, yeah. Luke almost tried to kill Kylo. And then the third time, you see it, Luke has ignited a lightsaber. And because Luke was always conflicted in the original trilogy, you know, do I go to light, do I go to light, do I go to the dark? And he has, for 1 second, he goes, I saw all the damage that he was going to do, and I thought for 1 second that maybe I could just end it and nobody could be hurt. So he ignites the lightsaber, but then he's about to de-ignite it or whatever, close the lightsaber, and Kylo turns around and he thinks that Luke's going to kill him. I thought that was incredible. Definitely one of the best things in the movie.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's just... And each time you're blown away because the first time we finally get to see what happens in some recognition.
Yeah.
And you think, oh, okay, yeah, Kylo's just, Kylo's evil. But in the second time, you're like, wait a minute, okay, Luke is at fault here in some extent. And then the third time, you get to see that there's even more conflict and that Luke himself hesitated the final time and wasn't going to kill Kylo, thinking there's a chance he could change him. But it was too late. Kylo Ren saw him, turned, and then caused the damage. It just, each time felt like its own twist because you just got this little more perspective, just pushed on just this little more. And yeah, Mark Hamill, in that second time when Kylo Ren's telling it to Rey, you thought he was going to do it. There was
I really did. I gasped in the movie theaters and looked at you and my other brother and we're like, oh my God, is that what really happened? And then you realize you get a payoff at the third one and you see the twist again. I thought that was set up and just like so delivered on so hard. Now,
executed
to move forward,
perfectly.
Yeah, definitely executed perfectly. And move a little bit forward now. When we get to Rey in Snoke's, I guess, banner room or whatever, throne room, chamber, whatever you want to call it, with him, Kylo, and Rey are all in the same room with the Praetorian guards. I thought that was one of the best scenes in the movie.
I'll go a step further. I think this whole scene, from start to finish, might be the single best scene in Star Wars. And I dare you guys to fight me on this because you're wrong. This is
Fight me in the
legit.
comments.
Fight me in the comments. Don't at me, okay? I will defend this shit day and night. I don't care where it is because this scene has so much going on. Not only did Rey think she could go straight to General Snoke's ship and just turn Kylo to the good.
Yeah, how stupid is she? I mean, come on. That's
Right.
ridiculous that she believes that. But with that being said, that shows you how conflicted Kylo Ren was, that she feels really genuinely feels she could turn him on Snoke's ship.
Yeah. And obviously, this is like our second time in the movie that we actually get to see Snoke physically. And Andy Serkis nails villainy to the T.
Yeah.
Snoke is so sinister. You get it in every single line, every single movement.
Yeah.
He's the absolute embodiment of evil. And he's toying with Rey, trying to get inside Rey's head. But Rey isn't backing down. And when it finally comes time for Kylo Ren to prove himself to Snoke truly, you get one of, if not the biggest twist in this movie, and maybe
wait! Don't spoil it yet. I want to talk about the fact that Rey is still trying to fight her way out of that, and I think that's one of the things that pushes Kylo to, at the end, kill Snoke. I thought it was really cool seeing them like force fighting over the lightsaber. Okay, now finish.
Yes. Okay, so Snoke's holding Rey with the Force. Rey can't move. It's time for Kylo just to execute her, get over with, get himself fully over to the darkness. Yeah. And there's just this great reveal. He's using the Force subtly to just turn Rey's lightsaber while Snoke's not paying attention because he's so enthralled with the fact that Rey is about to be killed by Kylo.
Yeah.
And just this awesome reveal. And this might be the most graphic scene in Star Wars, and all of the what's the word? Non-animated live-action Star Wars movies. This is probably the most graphic exchange in Star Wars history when he clicks on the lightsaber with the Force, and it just straight up cuts Snoke in half. And you see.
Well, at first it just goes right through him, and then he pulls it with the Force and like finishes him off, and it lands in Rey's hand, and then the music kicks up, and you're like, "Holy shit, that was crazy cool." I also thought it was really cool that basically Snoke had his eyes closed, and he was like reading Kylo. He's like, I know all of his thoughts. He's ready to ignite the lightsaber. He's pointing it towards his greatest enemy. He's about to ignite it and kill his greatest enemy. And then you see the lightsaber turn, and then you see him igniting, and it's so satisfying, like incredibly satisfying to see him get stabbed right in the middle. Now, before we go into the best fight scene in all of Star Wars when they fight the Praetorian Guards, let's talk about the fact that Snoke dies in the second movie. Is it a problem to me? No, I actually think this is the best thing they could have done, because if Snoke lives into the third movie, then we know that Kylo Ren is turning in the third movie, because you can't have two major villains die in the third movie because it's not satisfying. So, do I have a problem with him killing Snoke in the second movie? No, I thought it was shocking and incredible, and it was halfway through the second movie. It wasn't even the climax of the second movie. It was halfway through. I thought it was incredible. What do you think?
Yeah, and I think this is like the exact same version as if Snoke killed off, or if not Snoke, if Kylo killed off Leia. This same purpose. This was Kylo stepping into his own as the main bad guy. Either way, and I'd much rather keep Leia. In all honesty, he's there in the first movie. We get this tease of him. We see him. We hear him a couple times, and even in this movie, he doesn't really play that big of a role. He's just the subtle force in the background, kind of moving the chess pieces. Yeah. So I think losing Snoke is definitely not a big deal, and afterwards, once this whole scene is over, it cements that Kylo is going to be the leader. He's going to step up. He's going to be the leader of the First Order. He is taking Snoke's place. And, it kind of harkens back to the old school Sith with how it's always the destiny of a Sith master to be killed by his apprentice.
Right.
And that's essentially what Kylo did. Even though the Sith isn't really a thing anymore, that's, the obvious intention with that scene. And plus, again, it leads into the best fight scene in Star Wars.
I'm ready to call it that. I thought Duel of Fates was the best fight scene of Star Wars, and it's in one of the worst movies, but that was an incredible fight scene. But this takes a cake, man. The music is incredible, and the choreography is even better, and we get to see these red guards who have all these cool weapons fight like badasses. I thought that shit was dope. It was very cool to see Rey and Ben kind of fight together. I thought all of that was really cool.
and it shows like kind of the difference in Jedi's now in this time versus before, because this is not an elegant show of Jedi mastery. This is a brutal, savage fight to the death, and it is played out exactly like that. There are Praetorian guards getting cut in half, dudes just being absolutely executed. Kylo Ren is just going ham, screaming. There's so much emotion and rage in both him and Rey, and the choreography is so well done. The music, the way that they are struggling to stay alive because they haven't mastered their powers perfectly, and these Praetorian guards are just getting hacked to pieces.
Yeah.
It's graphic, it's raw, it's gritty. The whole scene is just so well done, and it ends with this exchange between Rey and Kylo, where they're trying one more time to get each other over to their respective sides. And there's this awesome force exchange where they're trying to pull the lightsaber that Rey has to one of them to gain power, to gain this dominance.
Yeah.
And it ends with ripping the lightsaber in half and this giant force explosion, and Rey managed to get away with both pieces. But it shows that even at this early stage, Rey is equal to Kylo. They are equals because they haven't mastered their powers. And just the scene is fucking amazing. There's no other way to put it. It is goddamn amazing.
Yeah, and then when Rey throws Kylo the lightsaber and he just like turns it on real quick and it like knocks the guy's eye out or whatever, the whole theater went nuts when that happened. Like, oh, that shit was dope. And then also I want to talk about one more thing. The scene with Snoke explaining to Rey that she came up to be as strong as Kylo because Kylo was making such an imbalance in the Force that the Force had to bring a light side user up with him, and that's why they're kind of equal right now. From what I understand from the middle, that's what they're trying to lead you towards, and I don't have a problem with that. And then also having the reveal that Rey's parents are actually nobodies. Now, my theory on that is I don't have a problem if it is nobodies. That doesn't bother me. I think it would be great if it wasn't a Skywalker or a Solo. But my theory on that is that Kylo could be lying to her to try to make her come to his side. Like saying, hey, your family, had wanted nothing to do with you, and you should come to my side because we're going to roll this thing together.
Right. But I mean, I feel like if we were going to, if her parents were important, I feel like this was the movie to reveal it. So I feel like they're definitely moving away. And it's clear by the end that Rey has moved on. Because you see it, because she's more in tune with her powers. Obviously, jumping ahead, but there's a scene at the end where she has this massive use of her force powers. And I think that's kind of like their way of saying she's coming to her own. She is the she controls her power. She's controlling herself because she's moved past this big hurdle in her life of her parents. She's moving on and she's looking forward.
Oh, so yeah, I feel like,
I don't know if they're going to bring it up again, but I kind of hope they don't, because I feel like her parents don't have to be anyone. Their parents don't have to be anyone for this to matter. I think that she's got her closure.
Yeah, no, they don't. Absolutely not. They do not have to be parents that we know, and I don't have a problem with it that way. I know a lot of people do because they put so much stock into Rey parents' theories,
Right.
But I
really going back a couple of scenes, like maybe like 30 minutes before that exchange in the throne room, Rey goes down this dark force hole on the island that she's at with Luke. She gives in. She's too curious. She goes in and she has this exchange where she goes into this weird mirror thing, and it's really cool. It's a really cool looking scene. But she asks the force or whatever is in there, who are her parents? And they reveal like these two shadows, and they come together into just another reflection of herself. I feel like that is Rian Johnson. Her parents don't matter. She is who she is. Yeah. Regardless. Yeah. I feel like they're definitely going to be moving away from that.
I hope so, to be honest. I do know that JJ might have had something different in mind, so maybe he'll bring it up in the third movie, but hopefully they're collaborating together. So, to move forward, we get Finn and Rose come back with the Codebreaker. They break onto the ship. They kind of make their way through and almost get to where they need to do. I can't remember. It has something to do with like diffusing their tracker or something like that.
Yeah, they were gonna have the Codebreaker open up the room to the hyperspace trackers so Rose could destroy it.
Yes. Okay, so we get there. Then we get the great payoff of Phasma versus Finn, but unfortunately it was a little too short for my liking, even though it was cool that Finn stood up and finally was like, to beat the First Order, we need to do it ourselves. We can't run away from him.
Well, I think you jumped over my other big favorite reveal of this movie, and that's that Benicio del Toro's character. There's this great exchange on their way back to the fight where the General Husk's ship is and the rebellion forces are. They're in the stolen ship from Cantobite, and he's talking about how there's more perspective to things than you see because Finn and Rose's assumption was that the people who are rich as hell and living in Cantobite made their money selling weapons to the First Order. But it's revealed that the ship they took, the person who owned it sold weapons to the First Order and the Rebellion. And it's kind of this great hint that people will do whatever they have to survive, right? Sell weapons to both sides or whatever. And there's this great payoff of Benicio del Toro saying that to Finn because when they break into the ship, Benicio del Toro betrays them and gives them over to the First Order. And they have just such a great exchange in front of all the stormtroopers and General Husk and Phasma when they're about to be executed. That Benicio del Toro is just doing what he has to do to get paid and survive, and that's so great. It ties that whole little chunk of narrative together perfectly. And again, it's another twist, and it's so greatly done. It's so much like that show don't tell thing. Once again, they clearly were hinting at it with that exchange on the ship, and they delivered on it fully. I loved it. It was so good.
Yeah, I thought it was great as well. I think another thing that people are missing in that scene is the fact that he doesn't betray them from the beginning. He goes in there with the intentions to do what they asked him to do, and then they get caught, and then he goes, well, fuck, I'm going to cut a deal. And that's when he cuts the deal and tells them what's going on, and he gets the credits, you know?
Yep.
Yeah, but a lot of people are saying that he was betraying them from the beginning. It's like, no, it's not like that. He went in with the intentions to do the mission and get paid. Instead, they get caught, so he cuts a deal. So, to move on from there, we get the good fight between Finn and Phasma, where he uses that like stormtrooper lightsaber thing, which is pretty cool. But unfortunately, that's kind of a like fast-paced fight, and Phasma kind of just gets beat up pretty quick.
Yep. Well, and that also we skipped over quite possibly the most beautiful scene in all of Star Wars so basically the setup for this, Finn and Rose and Benicio del Toro's character, whose name I can never remember. Too lazy to look it up. They're going to disable. Character? I think it's DJ or something.
Yeah, he doesn't really have a name. He's Codebreaker or DJ.
Yeah. Anyway, so they're going to Husk's ship to disable the hyperspeed tracker. Meanwhile, one of the commanders, can't remember her name either, steps up. Commander Holdo had stepped up while Leia was in a coma after forcing herself back to life. And she assumed control. And this entire time, her and Poe are having this dynamic throughout the movie where Poe wants to take action because the main ship is running out of fuel. And once it runs out of fuel, they're going to be destroyed by General Husk's ship because they're essentially on the run. And so there's this big payoff where Poe takes control of the bridge forcefully with kind of like this mutiny to try and do something last minute. And then Leia wakes up, and because she has this force, I'm kind of skipping over a lot of things to get to this. Anyway, long story short, because we're kind of running long here, Commander Holdo is on the ship while the rest of the rebellion are fleeing in a bunch of pods to this old rebel base on another small planet that the First Order doesn't know about. They're so focused on the main ship that their trackers aren't going to detect all the little ships leaving. And because Benicio del Toro sold them out, they figured out what was going on. They're starting to target the little ships. So you have this scene where Commander Holdo is on this big ship with no fuel, essentially just watching their friends die. Their ships being blown up one by one by one. And she has this realization, there's only one thing we can do. And this is something that has been speculated in Star Wars for a very long time. What happens when you go into hyperspace through something?
It hits something,
She turns the ship around and goes hyperspace through General Husk's dreadnought. And this scene is so good. The music cuts. It's incredible. Just this quiet space
it's
vacuum.
So, like, muted. Yeah.
Yeah, because you're in this vacuum of space, and there's boom, this big white this big white streak through the dreadnought, and it's split in half, and just she sacrificed herself to save the rebellion. And this scene is just so impactful because it comes back to that narrative from even Rogue One and the first movie that for a rebellion to succeed, there have to be lives lost, and she made the sacrifice to keep the rebellion going. And there's just this big payoff following where Rose and Finn are able to escape with that great fight with Captain Phasma, and we get into they're hunkered down on the salt planet with the rebel base. But that whole scene is set up, and because up until that point in the movie, we thought Commander Holdo was just being like a dick to Poe for no reason.
Well, she
because she didn't know
was,
what to
to be
do.
fair.
Which
She
she
was.
was, to be fair. But
Yeah.
this whole time, she was leading us towards this planet with the rebel base. But Poe didn't know that because he was too gung ho and wasn't paying attention, which the audience kind of got behind his back. So the audience was kind of reflecting the same thing. We couldn't see the bigger picture. Again, the whole show don't tell is so well executed.
Yeah, I agree. And then let's move this forward a little bit because we are running very long here. When we get down to the Salt Planet, the First Order bring all the AT-ATs and the new versions of the AT-ATs, and they're going to take over this base. And we have this big door, and they got to break down this big door with this big laser thing. So what we do is we get all these like old school speeders, and they're trying to take down the Death Star tech, and we get a great scene with Finn about to sacrifice himself in the Ray, and I thought for sure Finn was gonna die there, and I thought John Boyega did such a great job with he. Okay, so he is one of the best, like, I don't know how to explain it, like expression actors. Like the way his expressions always say exactly
emotive.
what he. Yeah, emotive, very emotive. Say exactly what he should be feeling. So his face is like so. It's like disgusted. Like he's like, I'm so ready to die here for this because I hate you guys so much. He has so much hate in his heart right there as he's about to crash into this Death Star tech. And then Rose saves him, and there's a great line in the movie where she says, "We won't win this war by killing the things we hate, but by saving the things we love." I thought that was really
Best line in the movie. I don't care what anyone says. Best line in the movie.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
What'd you think about that scene though, especially with Finn? I thought Finn did like John Boyega was like killing that scene 100%.
Yeah, that whole fight on the Salt Planet. First off, it's beautiful because there's all this red soil underneath the layer of salt, and the speeders are like kicking up these red streaks, and like the whole scene just looks fantastic. Firstly, and then obviously the speedsters can't get past this wall of AT-AT. They're all being killed off, and then finally, Poe, obviously the most gung-ho person in this movie, is like, "We gotta peel off. It's not worth it." And Finn's like, "No." Finn refuses because he's like, "We need to stop this laser.
That's
The
Poe's
rebellion
arc
is
right
going
there.
to die."
Yeah.
Yeah. And then John Boyega, he keeps going. The laser's firing up. There's only one thing left to do. He has to charge the laser with the speedster to destroy it.
Yep.
And like you said, he's so resolute in that moment that just long enough, I was like, he's gonna do it. What the hell? He's gonna do it.
Bro,
Because no one wants to see him die. He's so good.
Nobody wants to see him die. No.
Yeah, he's hands down. He's one of the best parts of these sets of movies. Is John Boyega. He kills it. And then to have Rose, this auxiliary character who doesn't, in the grand scheme of things, really matter that much. She goes out of her way to save Finn and nearly kills herself in the process. And obviously that great line, it just, again, it comes back to that whole concept of the rebellion, like Commander Holdo's sacrifice. People are looking at the big picture, whereas Finn and Rey, and even to a certain extent Kylo, are kind of at this immature stage where they don't know to look at this bigger picture. There's just this underlying narrative that's just so well executed.
Yeah, I really thought it was great. And then to move forward here, we get the great scene with Leia and Luke finally being reunited after a long, long time. I thought that scene was very well done. And not to mention with the greatest foreshadow of all time by making Luke look younger in that scene and all of the scenes coming with his hair shorter and his beard more brown. That was the greatest way to show you that that's not really the Luke we saw on the island.
Yeah, and they sell it so well, and this will be the best example of why Rian Johnson is an incredible director going forward. I hope he goes on to do great things, because this and then the rest of the movie, whenever they employ this tactic, was just executed perfectly to the T. They don't tell you that Luke looks younger. They just give you the subtle hints. They give you the shots of Luke, and you just think, okay, maybe he like just trimmed himself up, like he came, because obviously, yeah, he cleaned himself up because he's gone back into the Force. He's ready to go, right? And that scene where Kylo is just screaming, "Shoot him! More! More! More!" It really hammers home just how crazy that is. That is Adam Driver at his very best.
Adam Driver, bro, you killed that scene 100%. The fact that he is just so resolute, like he has no love for Luke Skywalker ever again. He ruined his life. That kind of hate in his heart, and that was just
pure
crazy
rage, just the craziness that is going through him in that moment. And obviously 14 different AT-ATs shooting one spot over and over again. Man, it's just, that scene is just, it's heavy. That scene just sits with you, and you're sitting there like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
right?
and
Did
then
they
and
just
then Kylo goes out to meet him, and I think it gets more ramped up and better from there. Like it
yeah.
starts as a high level, and then it just goes up, up, and up. And we see Kylo go out to meet his master, and to finally go out and have this epic meeting. And then also another great thing about that scene that is also a very well done touch is that Luke doesn't make any footprints in there's no red from his footprints, but there's all this red from Kylo's footprints. I thought that was a nice touch.
Yep, a subtle hint. I actually I missed that, to be honest with you. I
Yeah.
didn't notice that. I was just too enraptured by what was going on. And then that's square off. It's just
Yeah.
so singular with the fact that Luke has come to peace with himself, whereas Kylo is more conflicted than ever. And it shows
Yes.
Kylo is just on the very edge. And this, I think, this brings even more the symbolism of like his lightsaber being this unstable energy, because he himself is this totally unstable force.
Yeah.
And obviously, the lightsaber duel between them is just awesome.
Yeah,
And
and the
then it
fact that
comes
he's
to
using the blue lightsaber that was just broken a scene ago. you know.
yeah, I think no, he had
No, he
was
uses
he was
the
using
blue
a different
lightsaber.
lightsaber. That was a different looking lightsaber.
No, it's
It
it's
was a
it's the
lightsaber.
blue
Did,
it's the
wasn't
blue
the light,
lightsaber. It's Darth
wasn't
Vader's
the
lightsaber.
lightsaber? Yeah, but Luke has his own lightsaber.
Yeah, his own lightsaber's green.
Okay, maybe I just missed it.
Yeah, no, that was intentional. He wanted the reason that the speculation is the reason that he looks younger and he uses the blue lightsabers because that's how he was when he met Kylo, and he wanted him to see him as he was back then. And I thought the great thing about that scene, the great payoff at the end, where he says the best callback of all time, where he says, "Strike me down, and I'll become more powerful than you could ever imagine." Just a straight callback to A New Hope when Obi-Wan does the same thing with Darth Vader, and it's the same kind of thing. Master and apprentice going after each other. The same exact kind of thing. Just what a great callback.
Yep, and then obviously the biggest reveal of this movie is when Kylo Ren does this amazing dash through him, and you don't quite see what happened. Did he just kill Luke? And then always this payoff that Luke is so powerful with the Force that he created a projection of his former self and sent it to meet at this battle to face Kylo Ren all the way from this far off planet. That's just how powerful. Like, we knew Luke was the most powerful Force user in the universe to this point, but we've never seen something to this scale. He created a physical embodiment of himself and sent it somewhere in his place.
Bro, I was so confused during that scene when he does them. Like, what is this? Like a hologram or something? And then it cuts to him in the island. And this is like one of the most iconic fucking shots. I'm getting chills just thinking about it. This is one of the most iconic shots in all of Star Wars as the camera pans around in a circle as Luke's hovering above the rock with his legs crossed, just like Rey was sitting on that rock. And he's like hovering up in the air. And then all of a sudden he goes, it cuts back to Luke and he goes, "See you later, kid," which is an exact reference to what Han Solo used to do to Luke. Han Solo used to call Luke kid all the time. It's kind of a callback there. I thought that was really cool just to see him up floating, and there's like this pan, and it's all like dark and red because it's sunset. That shit was dope, man.
Yeah, and then obviously the symbolism, the sun sets, and then Luke, does the Force death and becomes a Force ghost. Because, I mean, I guess the only explanation is that it took so much for him to create that projection that, the cost was too great on himself, and he had to become a Force ghost.
That's the running theory right now. There's no way to know if that's 100% true, but yeah, that's where I'm leaning towards as well. And then we get Rey kind of taking all the rocks out of the way to save the rebellion and take them on the Millennium Falcon, and that's kind of where the movie ends.
Yep, with the final payoff, way earlier in the movie, Luke goes into the Millennium Falcon and takes Han Solo's little pair of gold dice.
Yeah,
the gold dice on like the fucking rear view mirror or whatever. I'm not sure what would be in
the spaceship.
Yeah. But he leaves it behind in the Rebel base for Kylo to find. It's kind of like this last reminder that your past will not escape you. Essentially, it's great. That ties everything together perfectly for me. I mean, this movie just messes with you in a lot of ways. It leads you down a bunch of different paths. At the last minute, just fucks you up, man. Like, I thought if they were going to kill off Luke, it was going to be earlier in the movie. I thought Luke was going to come to the final battle. It was going to be physically Luke and not some kind of Force ghost that he created within himself. There's just... this movie's good. I don't care what anyone says. This movie is good.
Dude, you don't have to defend it to me, man. I love this movie. We're coming up on the hour mark here, so we're gonna wrap this thing up. But obviously, me and Jack love the film. I hope you got some kind of enjoyment as well. I do agree with some of the criticisms of the film that maybe it's a little too much packed into 2.5 hours, and there's a couple of jumping around scenes. But if you love this movie and you've seen it more than once, I think you're gonna be able to pick up on all those scenes and enjoy the flick. Any last thoughts, Jack?
Yeah, I would say overall, even like there's issues with the movie, but overall, it's stronger than Episode 7, and I think it deserves its place as a truly great Star Wars movie.
I agree. It's
Like,
number 2 on my list of all-time Star Wars films for right now. It might change 6 months from now,
yeah,
but for right now, I'm putting it there, and I'm really happy with that.
and I think that I think we all just have to accept that Empire is probably going to be the pinnacle. It's going to be hard, if not impossible. Empire did, but if we look at this trilogy, this new story as its own condensed thing, separate from the other Star Wars movies, this is a pretty infallible follow-up, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And that's all I have to say.
All right, if you like this kind of content, you can subscribe to Nerds Rise, follow us all on Twitter, check out our Facebook page, and please show us some support on Patreon. We really appreciate it. This has been Jesse. That's Jack. I'll catch you guys on the flip side. Later.
Later.